perhaps no place in America deserves the title disgrace of a superpower more than the very streets of Philadelphia. The city, once the birthplace of the Declaration of Independence, where promises of freedom and prosperity echoed, now reveals a dark side that stuns the world. Abandoned neighborhoods, tents pitched on street corners replacing homes, and thousands of people, from the elderly to the young, wandering aimlessly right beneath skyscrapers. That image was like a deep crack carved straight into the symbol of the American dream, turning it from a source of pride into a nightmare. In this video, we will step inside Philadelphia's homeless hell, not just to see the horrifying numbers, but also to deeply feel the despair and paradox of a nation that is one of the richest in the world, yet allows tens of thousands of its citizens to live on the streets. Perhaps few in America are unfamiliar with the image of Philadelphia's streets heavy with shadows. This city doesn't have a massive homeless population like Los Angeles or New York, but its presence permeates every corner, from bustling avenues to parks that were once peaceful havens. More concerningly, Philadelphia is experiencing the fastest rate of increase among major cities, making it one of the harshest urban environments for those without a home to return to. It is estimated that this year alone, Philadelphia has approximately 5,200 homeless people, an increase of nearly 10% compared to last year, and the third consecutive year this number has risen. This is also the first time since 2020 that the total number of homeless people has exceeded 5,000. The park benches are now packed with people sleeping, the smell of waste permeates the air, and even the rats have become a familiar part of the urban landscape, as if the city has accepted living with this adversity. Among the areas, Kensington, located less than 4 miles from Independence Hall, bears the burden of up to 35% of the city's total homeless population. This place is likened to America's largest slum, a land reminiscent of a post-apocalyptic film setting. Dilapidated buildings, the wavering shadows of people, tired and empty eyes, as if trying to regain a long-lost glimmer of hope. But let's put aside the dry statistics for a moment. What's truly worth pondering isn't just the few thousand people living on the streets, but why the homeless hell in Philadelphia has never stopped. Many news outlets have pointed out that the roots of this crisis lie in the epidemic of destructive substances. And it's true. There's a reason Kensington has been called the Walmart of America's vices, a place that has stolen the chance to start over from more than 236,000 young people between the ages of 10 and 34. On the streets of Philadelphia, the number of deaths from overdose due to the large-scale use of toxic substances within the homeless community has tripled in less than a decade. The sight of bodies collapsing on the sidewalk, sometimes just a few steps from brightly lit restaurants, has become so commonplace that people see it without surprise. But if you look deeper, a bigger question emerges. Why is this black market growing so rapidly, as if there were no controls in place? First and foremost, a significant cause lies in the overabundant supply, expanding market, low prices, and easy accessibility, making it difficult to break the vicious cycle. Meanwhile, the mental health treatment system, which is necessary for salvation, is considered fragmented and disconnected, making it difficult for those who are struggling to access and maintain treatment. Additionally, discriminatory looks from society unintentionally push them further away, causing those who once longed to return to the community to become increasingly isolated. Philadelphia was once known as the city of brotherly love. But amidst the current scene, the warmth of human kindness seems to have been swallowed by indifference and despair. A city once known worldwide as the cradle of freedom now forces people to ask, where is freedom? When thousands of people can't even find a roof over their heads. It's not just a wound for Philadelphia alone. It was a lingering shame for an entire superpower. If the root cause of the crisis lies not only in material scarcity, but also in societal indifference and discrimination, will Philadelphia, and the United States more broadly, dare to confront and heal this wound? or will it allow it to fester into an inescapable darkness? But that, of course, is not all of Philadelphia's darkest corners. Let's continue with us to the next part to discover even more haunting and painful truths behind the curtain of this city. Just like Skid Row in Los Angeles, Philadelphia embodies a painful paradox. Beneath the glamorous facade, where the dazzling lights of skyscrapers, cultural centers, and luxury hotels shine, lurk haunting shadows, slums likened to hell right in the heart of the city. They are not just cracks in the city's facade, but deep wounds in the belief in fairness and compassion. Kensington is perhaps the clearest demonstration of that reality. On an area of just about 2.5 square miles, with over 23,000 residents, this neighborhood has long been considered the heart of the homelessness crisis in Philadelphia. The 19th century row houses, once symbols of community vitality, are now distorted under the weight of poverty and social ills. According to recent estimates, approximately 1,200 homeless people are living in Kensington, many of whom are suffering from disorders after falling into substance abuse. On the sidewalks, makeshift awnings are stacked together. Narrow paths become dwellings, creating a scene reminiscent of a miniature post-apocalyptic city. In Kensington, daily existence is nothing short of a brutal negotiation with fate. In that crowd was a 68-year-old man, a former construction worker. After a serious injury, he lost his job and couldn't keep up with the rising rent prices in the wave of gentrification that was eroding Kensington. Now, his belongings are limited to an old backpack, and his sleeping place is a patch of ground near the L train tracks. However, amidst the stifling present, his eyes still lit up when he talked about his little daughter who loved to paint. That story is like a fragile green shoot amidst the ruins, reminding us that even in despair, humanity still yearns for hope. Kensington, through such lives, is not just a location, but also the intersection of poverty, despair, a lack of affordable housing, and exclusion from the mental health system. This reality has raised a burning question. How can a community overcome when homelessness and dangerous vices are openly rampant to such an extent? Leaving the chaotic Kensington, we entered Center City, Philadelphia's economic and cultural hub, home to over 60,000 residents and attracting approximately 3 million visitors annually. Iconic structures like the majestic City Hall or the illuminated Philadelphia Museum of Art affirm the city's strength and splendor. But right at the foot of the skyscrapers, another reality exists. Hundreds of people sleeping in parks, under shop awnings, on public benches, silent shadows amidst the bustling pace of life. In 2025, Center City recorded over 800 homeless individuals. This number, though smaller than Kensington's, caused a shock due to the stark contrast with the area's picture of prosperity. Among them was a 75-year-old woman who had been a librarian all her life, dedicated to books. After a divorce and mounting medical debt, she lost her home and now often sleeps on a stone bench near Rittenhouse Square. The memory of reading to children at the library still remains vivid in her, like a fragile piece of self-respect clinging to her amidst the losses of life. Home prices in Center City have increased by over 20% since 2020, and gentrification continues to push low-income residents out of the center. While tourists strolled and took photos in front of the magnificent buildings, and while the upper class enjoyed the comforts, people like the librarian became invisible figures. They are present but forgotten, like a misplaced note in the city's symphony of prosperity. Philadelphia, in that contrasting picture, not only reveals the dark corners of a major city, but also shows the deep cracks in the American dream that many generations once believed in. And if even the wealthy center, the economic and cultural heart of the city, cannot hide the specter of the homeless crisis, then does the dream of a sufficient and compassionate America still exist in our memories? When it comes to homelessness in Philadelphia, it's easy for many people to blame fallen individuals, assuming it's simply a consequence of laziness or irresponsibility. However, a deeper look will reveal that this is not just the tragedy of individuals, but also systemic shame, where fragmented and ineffective policies have contributed to the vicious cycle of poverty and despair. For decades, the city of Philadelphia has spent hundreds of millions of dollars on housing and social welfare programs. However, the number of homeless people has not only not decreased, but has steadily increased in the last 3 years. Large budgets announced often come with well-intentioned promises, but when put into practice, the results are often lackluster. The welfare system is fragmented. Agencies don't coordinate closely, often leading to those in need being overlooked or receiving only short-term support. Instead of creating a sustainable safety net, the system is more like temporary patches, not strong enough to prevent subsequent falls. Housing policies, which were initially expected to partially address the issue, have in reality revealed many limitations. Rent assistance or construction programs often don't keep pace with rising housing costs and supply shortages. Gentrification changes the face of many neighborhoods, but at the same time, it pushes low-income residents out of the very places they once called home. Some federal housing voucher programs exist, but the waiting lists are so long that many people never get their turn. When the roof, which is the most basic foundation for stability, becomes a difficult-to-access privilege, it is inevitable that the number of people forced to live on the streets will continue to increase. In that picture, the role of the community cannot be overlooked. Society often views the homeless with prejudice, considering them a burden or the darkness of the city. This very alienation inadvertently exacerbates the isolation. Those who were already struggling to recover are being pushed further away from opportunities for reintegration. This is not just an individual problem, but a failure in building a society that knows how to support the vulnerable. However, there are still glimmers of hope. Some initiatives by non-profit organizations or public-private partnerships have shown positive results in supporting affordable housing and providing community health services. Major brands like United Way have participated in fundraising and support campaigns to create long-term solutions for housing and homelessness. These efforts demonstrate that when resources are allocated appropriately and there is synchronized coordination, it is still possible to open a path of hope for those who are being left behind. If a system designed to protect the community consistently allows vulnerabilities to swallow up the most vulnerable, what can we trust for our own future and the next generation? Philadelphia is not only facing a growing number of homeless individuals, but is also witnessing a wave of simmering social unrest creeping through every neighborhood. The familiar sights here: tents packed tightly in the park, sidewalks used as shelters, and even long lines of people waiting for free meals, have become symbols of a vicious cycle of poverty that is difficult to escape. Instead of being just isolated cases, this phenomenon reflects a comprehensive breakdown in the social structure, where welfare and economic policies are insufficient to protect the most vulnerable. Social unrest often stems from the disparity between apparent prosperity and the reality of poverty. Philadelphia has modern areas filled with luxury restaurants and shopping malls, but just a few blocks away, one encounters the opposite scene. Families crammed into dilapidated rental rooms, workers forced to take multiple jobs but still unable to afford rent, and elderly people living on food stamps. As this injustice becomes increasingly apparent, it creates a sense of discontent and a loss of trust, not only among the homeless, but also among ordinary residents who witness the weakening of the support system. Studies on urban poverty have previously emphasized that one of the root causes of this vicious cycle is the cost of living increasing faster than income. In Philadelphia, rent and medical costs have been steadily rising for years, while wages and social benefits have not kept pace. Support programs such as housing vouchers or food stamps do exist but have limited resources and long waiting lists, making it impossible for thousands of families to access them in a timely manner. Policies that seem humane become ineffective when implemented slowly and lack synchronization with the real market. Another aspect of this vicious cycle lies in education and employment. Many young people in Philadelphia's poor neighborhoods have to drop out of school early and lack the skills to access stable jobs. They easily fall into temporary, even dangerous choices, making the path out of poverty increasingly distant. The community is divided. One side benefits from gentrification and the service economy, while the other is left behind, lacking housing, opportunities, and even the belief that they can change their fate. Social welfare policies, if focused solely on cleaning up the streets or relocating temporary camps, will never address the root causes of the problem. What's more essential is a comprehensive strategy. Building more affordable housing, increasing resources for healthcare and mental health services, and improving access to education and vocational training for young people. Public-private partnerships have shown potential, and major brands like the Salvation Army are actively participating, providing temporary shelter, rehabilitation programs, and reintegration support to thousands of people each year. This is proof that the connection between the government, the community, and the private sector can open a way out of the seemingly endless cycle. If a city once called the cradle of liberty allows thousands of people to be trapped in instability and poverty, what can we expect from the values that America still prides itself on? If you just glance at the statistics, it's easy to forget that behind Philadelphia's homelessness crisis are real, flesh and blood people, each with a lifetime of stories. Every street in Kensington or Center City is not just a row of tents, but a refuge for memories, loss, and dreams left by the wayside. There, the community exists in a state of despair, as if living in a hell right in the heart of a modern city. One might encounter a grey-haired veteran who served his country during the war years, now huddled under an abandoned porch. He once had a family and a stable job, but when his health declined and his pension wasn't enough to cover his medication, he ended up homeless. Such stories are not uncommon, clearly demonstrating the helplessness of the social security system in failing to protect those who once sacrificed for the country. On another street, a single mother juggled 2 part-time jobs, but still didn't have enough money for rent. When medical debt piled up after an unexpected hospitalization, she and her 2 young children were forced to seek temporary shelter in a crowded camp. There, children have to learn to sleep amidst noise, bright lights, and sometimes even the insecurity of having too many strangers around. Children who grow up in these circumstances are often considered the lost generation because they have little opportunity to experience a safe childhood. Besides, many young people are trapped in a vicious cycle of unemployment and social ills. Without stable jobs, they turn to easy but dangerous options and were quickly pushed out of the community. This is not just an individual story, but also a social wound as a generation of young people is gradually left on the sidelines. Current welfare policies, even if they exist, are still insufficient to change reality. Temporary shelters often only address immediate needs, while the supply of affordable housing is woefully inadequate. Subsidy programs are limited, and waiting lists are years long. Healthcare and mental health services are fragmented and difficult to access, often preventing those who need help the most from maintaining long-term treatment. Without a comprehensive strategy, the homeless population continues to cycle in despair. However, there are still small glimmers of hope. Non-profit organizations and some major brands have intervened, offering practical solutions. The Salvation Army is one of the leading organizations providing shelter, hot meals, as well as rehabilitation and vocational training programs for the homeless. These efforts, while not a complete solution, have brought hope that with stronger collaboration from the government and society, a way out can still be found. If a city once known as the City of Brotherhood allows thousands of people to live in hellish conditions right in the heart of the metropolis, then what is the true measure of prosperity and compassion? Philadelphia, once hailed as the birthplace of freedom, faces a grim outlook if the homelessness crisis and social unrest continue to be overlooked. What's happening today isn't just a matter of the present, it's also a clear warning about the city's future. When thousands of people are homeless, when neighborhoods become symbols of despair rather than hope, that future can hardly be a bright one. One of the biggest risks is the erosion of residents' trust. For years, Philadelphians have witnessed short-term cleanup campaigns, promises of more housing construction, or widely publicized support programs that only existed on paper. If this situation continues, trust in the city's ability to govern will continue to decline. And as trust erodes, community cohesion also gradually breaks down, leaving a void easily filled by skepticism, apathy, and even anger. A bleak future is also clearly visible in the younger generation. Children who grow up in homeless families or unstable neighborhoods face the risk of being cut off from development opportunities. Disrupted education, neglected mental health, and a stressful living environment make them vulnerable to being left behind. If a generation grows up without faith in their ability to rise, the city will pay the price for decades to come, with a shortage of skilled workers, rising crime, and a less competitive economy. Local businesses and the tourism industry are also likely to be affected. Images of tourists hurrying through streets filled with tents or large conferences hesitant to choose Philadelphia as a destination clearly reflect the potential economic consequences. Without a long-term solution, the city could lose its competitive advantage in attracting investment and tourists, while also putting additional pressure on an already tight budget. Another aspect that cannot be overlooked is security instability. When the homeless community is driven to desperation, and when policies only focus on displacement rather than creating fundamental solutions, the risk of social conflict will increase. The public is concerned about safety, the police force is under increasing pressure, and the government is stuck in a cycle of firefighting instead of restructuring the system. Philadelphia's future is therefore at risk of spiraling out of control. However, not everything is at a standstill. There have been models showing that change is possible with consensus and determination. Public-private partnerships, when implemented correctly, can create affordable housing, increase the supply of community health services, and provide vocational training programs for young people. Some non-profit organizations have demonstrated that with proper resource allocation, hundreds of families can regain their homes and stability. Among them, the Salvation Army continues to play a significant role, providing shelter, meals, and even rehabilitation programs that give the homeless an opportunity to reintegrate. This is a testament to the fact that when the community and large organizations work together, rays of hope can still emerge from the darkness. If a city once revered by the entire world as a symbol of freedom and opportunity allows those very values to be overshadowed by chronic homelessness, how much faith can Philadelphia, and by extension, the United States, retain for future generations? Philadelphia is not only facing an immediate crisis, but also the risk of losing its very soul. The city, once a symbol of freedom and brotherhood, is now struggling with makeshift tents, unstable neighborhoods, and abandoned lives. This is not just the shame of a single city, but also a test of the values that an entire nation once prided itself on. If even a city once hailed as the cradle of liberty cannot provide housing for thousands of residents, what can we leave for future generations? That's not an easy question to answer, but it's one that everyone needs to pause and reflect on. If you find these things need to be known by more people, please like and share the video to spread the story. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue exploring the hidden downsides that are quietly shaping today's society with us. The content in this video is designed to provide information and stimulate reflection on social issues in Philadelphia in particular and the United States in general. The figures, phenomena, or stories mentioned are primarily based on public sources, reports, and observations from reality, with some general descriptive details included to reflect the overall picture. The video is not intended to assign blame to any individual, organization, or agency, nor does it encourage or condone any extremist actions. Viewers are encouraged to verify information from multiple sources and use this content as material for reflection and discussion, not as an absolute conclusion.